Who are you? No, I don't mean your name. I don't mean your occupation. I don't mean your race or your ethnicity. Who are you? If all these are taken away from you, who are you? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever tried to figure out who you really are, your true self? You see, that question is actually a very important question that many people are still struggling to find ourselves to. And we're not alone. The question has actually been a challenge to humans for thousands of years, right from ancient time. And it's in understanding that question that you're actually able to maximize your potential and become the best version of yourself. Who are you? Well, you see, why is the question of who am I important? It is important because knowing who you are will affect how you think and how you feel. It also affect how you treat others. It will affect the goals you set, to affect how you respond to challenges and the kind of life you live. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about um, the various types of self. I try to let you understand your real self and try to help you negotiate through the challenges you've been faced with in trying to answer that question of who you really are. And of course, draw you closer, one step closer, rather, as it will be, to your desired self and to your desired goals. So stick with me in this video. And in the course of my interaction in this video with you, I'll talk about the types of self. I'll try to let you understand and explain how self is formed, because you see, self is not static, self is dynamic, so it's changing. And I'm going to explain that in the course of the video. If you stick through the video and to the end, you eventually learn a couple of things. I promise you, you'll learn a couple of things in this video. And also, in addition to that, I'll talk about self-concept and self-awareness, trying to differentiate the two, compare and contrast the two. Then we'll look at some of the challenges to knowing self, because there are some challenges that people face currently and even in the past, but of course, you have to talk about ourselves right now. There are challenges people are facing in understanding their real self. And then we'll look at some of the tools to understanding yourself and how do you develop the self. Try to look at that. And then we'll look at the self in relationships. We'll look at how global, cultural, and lifespan perspectives affect self. And then we'll also look at how yourself is constantly changing, like I said earlier. So in the course of this video, we'll delve into all these various parts of the video, talking about these things generally itself, and try to see how to, as much as possible, explain it in a way that you will understand, because my reason for being here is to help you maximize your potential. Because like I always say, the world needs what you have become. So stick with me in this video. So the big question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? That's a very big question, actually. And you see, the self is your inner identity. Everything that makes you. It's not just your name, it's not your job, like I said, it's not your role. It includes every single thing. It includes your thoughts, it includes your feelings, it includes your body, your beliefs, it includes your dreams, your memories, your personality. It includes your soul or your essence, as if you believe in one. Think of self as a house with many rooms, and each room holds a different part of you. Part of you, maybe physical, mental, emotional, social, and even spiritual for those that are very spiritual. Now, like I said, this big question: who am I? See, this question has been asked for thousands of years. Philosophers like Socrates talked about know thyself, as know yourself. And we have spiritual teachers across all religions trying to figure out who they really are. And they always talk about how people can also figure out themselves. And even today, we have scientists and psychologists doing lots and lots of research on understanding self. Even artists and musicians too are on a quest to understand self. So it's not a question for just the wise. It's a question for everybody. A 7-year-old that's asking why they are different from their friends. A teenager that is wondering what to do with their life, and a worker that is trying to find meaning in their job. Even an old person that is trying to reflect on the kind of life that they've lived. Uh, Knowing yourself is the foundation for self-control, foundation for emotional peace, better decisions, loving others, and living with purpose. And what are then the dimensions of self? To truly understand yourself, you need to explore your physical self, which is your body and your health. You also need to explore your emotional self. Like I said, self, consider it, look at it like a house with various rooms. And in one of the rooms now we have the physical self. In another part of that house, we have the emotional self, which is your feelings and how you handle your feelings. Then we have the mental self, your thoughts, your mindset, and personality. And the social self, which is your interactions with others. And the spiritual self comprises your values, your meaning, and the beliefs you have. So, what are the types of self? Like I said, let's actually delve into that and understand the types of self. It's in understanding the types of self that you understand yourself. Because when you put these various types of self, quote unquote, together, you eventually get the holistic self that comprises who you are. And so, like I said earlier, the physical self is your body. So, this is my body, physical self. And this is the most visible part of yourself. And it includes your face, it includes your shape, your skin, your height, your weight, your age, your health, and your abilities. Your physical self also affects how others see you and how you see yourself, your body image, your energy, your confidence, and your daily function. Do you respect and care for your body? Do you feel comfortable in it? Taking care of your body and taking care of your physical self includes eating well, getting enough sleep, exercising, and avoiding harmful substances, and even going for regular medical checkups. That's taking care of your physical self. Another type of self or yourself is your emotional self, and these are your feelings. This is the part of you that feels emotion: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, love, you know, shame, pride, and so on. That's your emotional self. Understanding your emotional self means knowing how you feel and knowing why you feel that way, and also knowing how to express it healthily. So many people are actually out of touch, with their emotional self, or they've been told that don't cry, be strong, hey man, boys don't feel. But denying emotions is dangerous. Emotional maturity actually means being able to name your emotions and sitting with them without judgment. You're able to talk about your feelings and not allow yourself to be controlled by your emotions. You don't just behave rashly because you are hungry or sad. You're not controlled by those emotions. So that's emotional maturity. Can you name your emotions? And do you hide or suppress how you feel? It's an important question to ask yourself. Another part of yourself, type of yourself, is your mental self. And the mental self is how you think. This is your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs, attitudes, your intelligence, and your imagination, your personality. It's your mental self. And it shapes how you make decisions, it shapes how you solve problems, it helps you to respond to challenges, and how it also shapes how you see the world. Now, some people have a negative mindset. Others actually have a positive mindset. Some are open to new ideas, and others are a bit closed and rigid. But a healthy mental self is one that is flexible in thinking. To have flexible thinking, and curious, and strive for clarity and confidence. And you can improve your mental self by reading and learning and asking deep questions. Try to ask questions and try to challenge challenging false beliefs, thinking critically, and developing your focus. So I put it to you, and I ask you this question: Are your thoughts helping you grow, or are they holding you back? The mental self. To answer those questions properly. Another type of self is the social self, and the social self is how you relate with others. See, we are not alone in this world. Neither are you. We are not alone. We are all man is a social being, and your social self includes how you interact with people, your roles, and you know, for instance, you may be a daughter, a friend to someone, you're a leader to another person, you're a worker. So these are your roles, and also to encompasses your communication style, the way you actually get to interact with people, communication style, and your habits in relationship. So every human has a need to belong and to be seen and to be accepted. But sometimes we wear masks just to please others. And we say yes, even though we mean no, we say yes when we mean no. And we lose our true self in the crowd. But being socially healthy uh, entails setting and having boundaries, knowing your value and being kind but assertive, and also choosing good company. That's how you eventually develop a healthy social self. Do you change who you are, just to fit in? And do you feel safe with your true self around others? You should answer those questions. The next type of self is the spiritual self. And this is what you believe and value. This is the deepest part of you, actually. It's your sense of purpose, it's your connection to something greater, your values and your morals, your belief systems, whether they're religious or not. By the way, spirituality doesn't always mean religion. It can be faith in God, yes, but it can also be connection to nature, and it can be belief in love, truth, justice, kindness, spirituality. It can also just be a personal philosophy to life or about life, how you see the world. That's spirituality itself. So a strong spiritual self is important in having inner peace, uh, and meaning and direction for your life. So you need to grow your spiritual self. And how do you do that? You grow your spiritual self by reflecting deeply and asking the question, why am I here? Why are we here? And practicing gratitude, spending quiet time, and being kind and compassionate. What do you believe in? What gives your life meaning? Something to answer, to understand your spiritual self. Now, in addition to this, we need to also understand the real self and the ideal self. It's very important to know the real self and the ideal self because they are two different things entirely. The real self is who you actually are right now. The ideal self is who you want to be. And the gap between the real self and the ideal self can either motivate you or frustrate you. Now, growth is in being able to move from your real self and move closer to your ideal self without shame or self-hate. So, what kind of person do you want to be in the first place? Have you figured out that for yourself? And another thing to take note of is the true self and the false self. The true self is your honest, natural, unfiltered self. And the false self is the marks you wear, to impress people and survive. And many people live in their false self, sadly. They're always trying to be perfect. They're saying what others want to hear. And they're hiding their struggles for their uniqueness. Now, your true self may feel weak sometimes. It may be weird, may be different, but it's authentic. And that's where peace lies. That's where peace lives. And so you need to ask yourself, am I pretending to be someone I'm not? Something to ask yourself. And so, having seen the types of self, I like to explain to you how the self is formed. Because um, if your understanding of how self is formed will help you realize you are, the way we are, and how to grow beyond, grow beyond it. Now, you see, the self is not born fully made. It is shaped, it is changed, it is influenced over time by many factors. We'll try to explore them um, because of because of this video. Now, what are these factors that influence uh, how the self is formed or shaped? One is nature, which is simply genetics, simply put, nature. And this is like the inborn traits you have. This is what you were born with. Some people were born. Of course, genetics comprising things like your biological sex, for instance, your genetic makeup, what you got from your parents, and your temperaments. Your natural, your natural emotional reactions, and your talents or abilities, disabilities as well, and the natural energy level and sensitivity you have. For example, see some babies are naturally calm, and others cry a lot. Genetics. That's temperament. It's genetics. And nature gives you your raw materials, but it doesn't determine everything. Very important to take note of that because you can still shape who you become. Now, what is the second thing that eventually affects yourself? Second thing that affects yourself. First was nature and genetics. The second is nurture, your environment and your upbringing. And this refers to the external influences around you, including your family and caregivers, the way you were raised, and the language you learned, and the food you ate growing up, your home, your country, your culture. You know. And children become what they live with. If they live with love, they eventually learn to love. And if they live with fear, they learn to hide, sadly. And examples of how nurture shapes you. Uh, for instance, if you were praised often growing up, you likely feel more confident about yourself. And for someone that was uh, constantly criticized, for instance, they might struggle with self doubt. If you grow up in chaos, you may crave stability or fear peace. And in addition to nature and nurture, another thing that shapes the self is family and relationships. Your family is your first mirror, you know, and it's, it's like a reflection of yourself because your family, um, of course, they teach you how you feel about yourself, and in your family, you realize and learn what is normal, and you also um, taught how to express or suppress emotions, and you're taught your first beliefs about gender, success, and failure. Your siblings, your parents, and even your extended family, by the way, affect your self-image. So, um, what lessons did you learn from your family that you carry today? Because your family actually influences yourself. And another thing that influences the self is culture and society. See, culture teaches you what is good and what is bad. It teaches you what is beautiful and what is ugly. And it also plays a part in influencing what we consider to be the roles of men and women, or what men and women should play. And culture also influences what success looks like to you. What is acceptable and what is shameful. And you absorb you absorb these beliefs from the media, from music, films, fashion, religion, and even education. And what's praised in one country, for instance, may be rejected in another. For example, being outspoken may be encouraged in some cultures, whereas in others may be considered rude, being offensive. It's important to ask yourself, what beliefs do I carry just because of everyone does it? Because culture actually influences who you are right now, to a very large extent. And in addition to culture influencing who you are right now, or having influenced who you are right now, another thing that influences who you are, or has influenced who you are, is religion or spiritual beliefs. And many people are raised, with a belief system that defines what is right and wrong, what happens after death, and the meaning of life, the rules for behavior, and the concept of for some say sin and shame and forgiveness. And this shapes your conscience, shapes your your guilt or your pride. And it also shapes your motivation for living. And religious teachings can deeply influence your moral self or your spiritual self. So, have you ever taken time to ask yourself the question, what parts of my belief system still guide me? And which ones actually confuse me? It's good to distinguish between the two. In relation to religion, and your religious beliefs, another thing that affects yourself or influences yourself is your education and school. And school influences, your your um, your intellectual confidence and how you relate with authority, for how you compare yourself to others, your education. And it also affects your sense of competition and your sense of cooperation. For example, a kind teacher can actually inspire you for life, and a shaming one can break your confidence. So you need to ask yourself this question: um, what messages did I receive in school about my intelligence or value, and how are they affecting my current self right now? In addition to school and education, another thing that influences yourself is your life experiences, good and bad, good or bad. And the experiences you go through leave deep marks. Trauma, abuse, or loss, can damage your self-esteem. Achievements, love, or mentorship can build it. Eh, See, painful experiences, if not healed, can actually cause things like um, self-doubt and can cause low self-esteem, can cause self-hate, can cause fear of failure and fear of trusting people. But they can also become sources of wisdom and strength if processed and transformed. So, what experiences have actually shaped and changed how you see yourself? Another thing that influences the self is your choices, your own choices. Because as you grow, you also shape yourself. The friends you keep, the habits you build, the media you consume, and the beliefs you adopt or reject. The values you decide to live by. All this eventually influences yourself. And self-development actually begins with it begins when you take responsibility of who you are becoming, regardless of what shaped you. So, are you doing today what is going to shape you into becoming the person you want to be tomorrow? You take note of that question. And so, summarily, the things that affect yourself, because your genetics and the environment, genetics being the nature, and the environment being the nurture, and your culture and family, your education and religion, your life experiences, and your choices. But you see, you're not stuck with what life gives you. You can actually replace, or you can actually replace those things life gave you, and you can reshape yourself. You can shape yourself. And so we'll try to explore the internal part of how you see yourself by understanding self-concept and self-awareness. And this is actually the part that has to do with everything that's happening inside you. How you see yourself, how you think other people see you, and how aware of yourself or how aware of you and who you are. Uh, and by the way, what is self-concept? Self-concept is the image or the idea you have about yourself. It is the answer in your mind to the question, who am I? That's self-concept. That answer you're giving your mind to this question I've asked of who you are, your self-concept. And your self-concept actually includes your name, your race, your occupation, your gender, your nationality, uh, your roles, your brother, your nurse, probably, or an artist, a student, your personality, for some that are funny and some that are maybe shy or brave, Your self-concept also includes your values and your beliefs, your opinions about yourself. Have a good self-concept. Say I'm smart. Others they say I'm not good enough. So you think of your self-concept as a mirror, and what do you see when you look into yourself? Now there are three parts of self-concept you need to understand: self-image, self-esteem, and the ID self. Self-image, self-esteem, and the ID self. Now the self-image is how you see yourself right now. You say I'm overweight, or responsible, or I'm not good at maths. Self-image. Your self-esteem is how much you value and respect yourself. And some people may say I'm proud of myself. Some may say I don't like who I am. That's self-esteem. Then this ideal self, on the other hand, is the person you wish to become. And some may want to be more confident. Some may want to be healthier and happier. But a healthy self-concept means your self-image is realistic, and your self-esteem is high, and your ideal self inspires you. I repeat that again. A healthy concept implies that your self-image is realistic, your self-esteem is high, and your ideal self inspires you. So what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is your emotional opinion of your worth. It answers the question, do I feel good enough? Do I matter? Do I deserve love, success? And there are three levels of self-esteem. There's the healthy self-esteem, there's the low self-esteem, and there's the inflated self-esteem. Now, the healthy self-esteem is when you believe you are valuable, even if you are imperfect. And the low self-esteem is when you constantly doubt yourself and you feel inferior. Whereas the inflated self-esteem is when you act superior or arrogant, to hide your insecurities. And the healthy self-esteem is knowing your flaws and accepting yourself, still respecting yourself. So what is self-worth, by the way? Self-worth goes deeper than self-esteem, actually. It's not just as casual as self-esteem, because it's the belief. Self-worth is the belief that you are worthy. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of care. You are worthy of good things. Just by being a human being. That's self-worth. And it's not even tied to money or success or those things. So it's the belief in your worth and your worthiness for love, dignity, and respect. And you don't have to earn self-worth. It's not even based on your appearance or what other people think about you. It's inherent. It's just like human rights. You have fundamental human rights. Just because you're a human being, you have fundamental human rights. Likewise, your self-worth. It's just because you're a human being. You have worth because you're a human. And that's understanding of self-worth. And the more you understand your self-worth, the less you depend on others to feel good about yourself. Then what is self-acceptance? Self-acceptance means being honest about who you are, recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, and not hiding your flaws and not pretending to be someone else. It's saying I'm still growing, but I accept myself as I am today. And self-acceptance is a soil which confidence, healing, and peace grow. So can you look at yourself without shame? And can you accept both your light and dark side? That will give you an understanding of your self-acceptance. Now, what is self-awareness? Self-awareness, like I said earlier, is the fundamental ingredients for growth. So it's the foundation of personal development. And it is noticing your thoughts. You notice things that cross your mind, and you watch your feelings, and you understand your behavior. Try to observe your reactions, like ask yourself, why did I just do that? Or why do I overreact? That's self-awareness, and it's the ability to step out of yourself and watch yourself without judgment. People with self-awareness, they know their triggers, they know and understand their values, and they recognize their bad habits, and they apologize when they are wrong. They can actually describe themselves and why they do certain things and what they want and why they don't do what they do. Can you observe yourself calmly, or do you hide from your own truth? Now, how do you increase self-awareness? How does one increase self-awareness? Journaling. Journaling. I used to keep a diary, by the way, since 2020, 2019. 2019, I said 2019. I was actually quite devoted to it. And I kept it for a while. Although recently I've been having a couple of distractions in my life, so. But Journaling is actually a very good way to have good awareness of yourself. And you just write your thoughts, you write your feelings and reflections, and you ask for feedback in addition to journaling. You try to ask for feedback from people you trust anyway, and try to understand what they think about you. And another way to increase self awareness is to partake in mindfulness and meditation. Try to observe you know, your thoughts without judgment. And you can also increase your self awareness by coaching and therapy. You can do that by also going for some people do personality tests to learn the patterns in your behavior. You can also pause and reflect, before reacting or making decisions, and practice honest self-talk. Like, why did I just say that? Why did I just behave like this? Why do I do this? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? The more aware you become, the more power you have to change your life. And a helpful analogy is the iceberg analogy. You see, yourself is like an iceberg, but 10% is above, and it's what people see. It's what you show people. The vast majority, the vast large part, or to a large extent, your real self is submerged. The 90% submerged below. And that's what's hidden. Your feelings, your beliefs, your trauma, your dreams. And self-awareness actually dives deep, dives below the surface to actually understand what's really going on. And having understand self-concept and self-awareness, I want us to actually look at some of the things that block the understanding of ourselves, because we actually have things that serve as challenges to knowing yourself. And some of these things that serve as barriers or challenges. Group number one, peer pressure. Peer pressure and the need to fit in, especially in our generation right now. From childhood, we are told either directly or indirectly or subtly that you need to be likable and you must behave in a certain way to be accepted. And say being different is wrong or dangerous. Excuse me. So what happens? We eventually end up copying others just to feel among, to feel included, and we hide our true opinions. And we say yes even when we mean no, and we change ourselves to avoid rejection. And this leads to false self, where you wear like a mask, to please others. But the more you try to be like others, the further you move away from your real self. Everything that happens, peer pressure and all of that, pushes you to your false self. And that push deviates you farther away from your real self. And so you need to ask yourself, do I act differently just to gain, favor and again approval, or to avoid judgment? Another challenge to understanding yourself is social media and comparison. And especially in our world here today, yeah, people live two lives basically. They have their real life, which is filled with ups and downs, and they have their online life, with the filter and they edit and they perform. And when we scroll through the perfect photos and success stories we see on social media, we often feel like we're not good enough, and we start comparing our journey to others and with others, and we think we are actually behind in life. But are we really behind in life? It also makes us try to create uh, an image. The whole social media rush, just trying to create an image rather than a life. Uh, and social media can actually confuse our sense of identity, especially for youth. And you see, what you actually see online is someone's highlight rate and highlight reel, and you can't compare someone's highlight reel to your real life, because most people don't even show their real life online. They don't show their real struggles. So, are you comparing your truth to someone else's performance? That's something to take note of. Another challenge to understanding yourself is childhood trauma or neglect. Painful experiences during childhood and early life can actually deeply affect our understanding of self. Emotional neglect, for instance, people may say too sensitive, or abuse or violence may make you feel like you deserve it, you deserve bad things, you deserve this. For example, or you had a shame-based parenting, make you feel like you're not good enough, or even lack of love or praise. So these experiences plant lies in our minds, and it makes us have an obscure perception of ourselves. Sometimes we feel like, say, I'm broken, say, I'm not lovable, it's my fault that everything's happening, negative things are happening around. I must hide who I am, to feel safe. And these beliefs become invisible walls blocking self-worth and self-acceptance. And so, what painful experiences shaped how you see yourself, and are they still controlling you to date? Another challenge to understanding self is cultural and religious expectations. And in many cultures, like I said earlier, and religious systems, there are strict rules, and there are also strict um, gender rules. And success is defined in a certain way, narrow ways most times. And in some cultures and some religions, expressing emotions is discouraged, and obedience is prioritized over individuality. And this can lead to suppression of your true thoughts, can lead to denial of your dreams, and even shame for just being different. It can also lead to fear of judgment. And you may carry identities not because they are true, but because you're expected to. And I need you to figure out what parts of identity are actually chosen for you and not by you. Another challenge to self understanding is mental health issues, conditions like anxiety and depression, uh, post traumatic stress disorder, personality disorders, and low self esteem. They can cloud your judgment of yourself, and it can cloud your ability to even know yourself clearly. You may think negatively about yourself, you may feel numb or disconnected from who you are, and you may avoid reflection because it's painful. You may believe you're worthless when you're not. So mental health challenges can also distort your perception. But they are treatable anyway, so that's a good thing. Getting therapy or support is brave, and it's a smart step towards um, true self-understanding. Another challenge to understanding self is perfectionism and the fear of failure. Because if you believe you must be perfect to be worthy, you may constantly self-criticize, and you may hide your flaws, and you may overwork to feel good enough, to feel enough. You may avoid trying new things, because of the fear of failing. Perfectionism is not always the best because sometimes it hides our emotion, it hides our humanity, and without seeing your full self, both light and shadow, you can't understand who you really are. And are you trying to be perfect or are you trying to be real? Another big hindrance, challenge to understand itself is avoidance and disconnection. And this is what most people indulge in today. Some people avoid knowing themselves because it's too painful. They fear what they might discover, and they've never been taught how to reflect. They're always busy, they're distracted, they're numb. So instead of thinking deeply and feeling emotions and facing the truth, they stay constantly entertained. They work non-stop. They use alcohol, they use food, they use social media, drugs, whatever, to escape reality. But um, you can't grow what you don't confront. And I want you to ask yourself, do I run away from silence? Am I afraid to face myself? And am I afraid to face within me? Another challenge to understanding self, in addition to um, avoidance and disconnection, is labels and judgments. And you might believe you're the dumb one, you believe you're the fat one, you might believe you're the failure, you might believe you're the quiet one, you might believe you're the angry one. Maybe someone gave you that label, or maybe you gave it yourself. But labels limit your identity, and you are more than one word. You're not your worst moment. You are not your past. You're not your pain. You know. And so, I hope you're not using labels to actually hide your true self. And so, having understood um, that there are challenges to understanding ourselves, what are actually the tools that we can use to understand ourselves better? Some of the tools that we can use to understand ourselves, like I mentioned earlier, is one, journaling. And try to write your thoughts, write your feelings, and have a daily reflection. That's a powerful way, one of the most powerful tools for actually understanding yourself. It helps you to track your emotional patterns and to discover hidden fears and dreams. And it helps you to express what you can't say out loud. You see how you have grown over time with journaling. And you can try daily or weekly prompts, like um, what did I feel strongly about today? And why did I feel strongly about that? When did I feel most like myself? Why am I running away? What am I running away from? And what do I wish people knew about me? If I wasn't afraid, what would I do? You don't write, by the way, to be perfect. You write to be honest. And so journaling is important. And another thing that can help in understanding self is mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness and meditation. See, mindfulness is paying attention to your inner world without judgment. Meditation, on the other hand, is spending time with your mind in silence or awareness. And practicing this can help you observe your thoughts clearly, can help you calm emotional chaos and see patterns you usually miss. Be fully present with yourself and practice simple mindfulness activities. For instance, you can just sit quietly for a while and just focus on your breath, for like 3 to 10 minutes daily. Or you can notice your feelings without reacting. You can ask yourself, what am I feeling? What am I feeling right now? Don't try to fix it, just try to understand what am I feeling right now. See, the more silent space you allow, the more your true self begin to hear. The more you begin to hear your true self. Another thing that can help you to understand yourself better is a personality or temperament test. These are tools anyway. They're not labels. Can do they don't define you particularly actually, but they may give you an idea or language to who you are. Tests like the MBTI test, which is the Myers-Briggs type indicator, where there are about 16 personality types in that test, and you can do the Big Five personality test or the Enneagram, which has 9 core types, their fears and motivations. And you can also try to understand your love language, or your temperament. For instance, some people are sanguine, some are choleric, some are melancholic, some are phlegmatic. But don't use this test to like box yourself. Use them to better understand your strengths and your sort of like a blind spot and how you relate with others. And you know what um, what environments help you and what environments harm you and harm your growth. Another thing that can help you to understand yourself is therapy, coaching, or mentorship. A trained therapist, a wise mentor, will help you dig deeper into emotional layers and may help you heal from past wounds, and help you see the blind spots, like I said earlier, that you can't see on your own, and may help you change your false beliefs and rebuild self-trust. You don't have to be broken, by the way, to consult a therapist or to need therapy. It's a form of mental and emotional maintenance. Also, mentors and life coaches are also important because it can guide you in career identity and confidence and emotional growth, decision making, all sorts of things. So, um, do you have people in your life that can actually help you see more clearly and understand yourself better? Another thing that can help you understand yourself, by the way, in addition to all these tools, is feedback from others. And others can often see things you can't see yourself. So try this. You try to ask trusted people, uh, what what's one strength you see in me? What one area that I need to grow in? And you pay attention to how people react to your energy, the habits and communication. And you listen without getting defensive. You don't have to agree with every opinion anyway, but every opinion can teach you something. And do you have uh, what 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 do others often say about you, both good and bad? Because there may actually be truth in it. Another tool that can help you to understand yourself, in addition to feedback, is lifetime line reflection. And I tried this myself. I actually tried this um, a couple of years ago. Try to understand. I tried to map out my life. And basically, what it entails is you try to map up your life like a story. You map up your teenage life and you try to understand what went on there and why you did what you did, and you move from the childhood life to the teenage era of your life. If you're a teenager, you understand where you are now, why you are there, and for those that are young adults, you try to look at the early adulthood. And basically now it's a map, sort of like a story of your life. And for each stage, you ask relevant questions like, who influenced me at this stage? And what beliefs did I pick up at that stage? What moments shaped how I see myself and what roles did I play. Were you the helper? Were you the rebel? Were you the golden child? What were the things that went on that phase of your life? So seeing your life as a timeline of influences can actually help you understand where your self-concept came from and which parts of your identity you've outgrown. And it can also help you to know what you still carry that's no longer true, because many of us are carrying things that are actually not true of us currently. And in addition to that, creative expression as well can help you understand yourself as a tool. So creative expression is another tool, because sometimes words are not enough to understand yourself. You need to draw, or you need to sing, or you need to paint, build, or perform. Creativity, it helps you release emotions and to discover what excites or angers you. So it helps you to express parts of you that feel locked in. Art, music, poetry, whatever, movement. You can speak the language of your mind, of the soul. And so try to understand the forms of expressions that make you feel most like yourself. And another thing that's very important to take note of as a tool for understanding itself is solitude. Solitude and digital detox. Because in a noisy world, we lose our sense of self. So we're spending regular time alone. We're spending regular time online, um, consuming content, listening to people's opinions and all of that. And we don't have time with ourselves. And so spending time regularly with yourself is important. So try to spend alone time, offline, without distractions, without scrolling or consuming. Just give your soul a chance to breathe. Understand? Let your soul breathe. Solitude is not loneliness, by the way. It's a space where you return to your core, return to your basics. And you can try 1 to 2 weeks, 1 to 2 hours a week, where you don't check your phone, just go for a walk or sit in silent place, and you just simply exist, without doing anything, without the need to do it. Just exist. Just spend time with yourself. It's very important. And all of these are important um, and powerful in self-discovery. And some questions you can ask yourself in the process of reflecting uh, include: what do I love doing when no one's watching? And what drains me and what energizes me? And you can also try to understand: what do I do if I wasn't afraid? Like, if you were told today, right now, that you will not fear whatever it is you want to be, or you want to do, or you want to become, you should just go out for it. And if you decide to step out for that, you will not fear. What would be that thing you would strive for? And what will you try to do? You know? And what do you believe about yourself? Is it true? Or what are the things you are carrying from the past that you need to let go of? What kind of person? What kind of person do you want to be remembered for? When you've lived some years from now and you look back at your past, what kind of life do you want to say I have lived? Be proud of. So these are questions you can ask yourself to understand yourself better. You're not an island. You're not island. We are social beings. Humans are social beings. And so it's good to actually understand self in relationships. Like, who am I when I'm with others, for instance? And how do uh, relationships reflect my self-understanding? Because you not exist in isolation. So every day, you interact. Yourself interacts with your family. Yourself interacts with your friends. Interacts with your um, romantic partners. Interacts with your colleagues. Yourself interacts with strangers and even the society at large. And so your ability to understand and grow in relationships is directly connected to how well you understand yourself. Now, you relate to others based on how you relate to yourself. If you criticize yourself a lot, you may be critical of others. If you hide your feelings, you may avoid emotional closeness. Excuse me. If you feel unworthy, for instance, you may avoid um, you may tolerate toxic relationships. And if you don't even know what you need, you may expect others to figure you out. Of course, if you respect yourself, you're likely to attract and maintain healthier bonds. And so self-awareness actually creates emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence improves every relationship you have. So, in addition to understanding that you relate to others the way you relate to yourself, it's also important to know the roles you play in relationships. Because often we adopt roles unconsciously based on how we are treated growing up. For instance, some people actually, remember the people pleasers, for instance. Some are the rescuers, and, some are the fixers, some are the victims, some are rebels, some are avoiders, some are caretakers, some are overachievers. And this role shapes how we show up in relationships. And sometimes not even our true self appears, but this actually shows up as sort of like a survival strategy. And so, have you tried to figure out the roles that you often fall into around others? And do you reflect on your real self? And boundaries, very important. You need to know where you end and where others begin. And that's where boundaries come into place. See, personal boundaries are actually the invisible lines that define what you will accept and will not accept. See, your emotional space, your time, your values, your energy, your life is determined by your personal boundaries. And if you set clear boundaries, or rather, if you lack clear boundaries, you may feel drained because you may feel used, you may feel resentful because you don't set boundaries. So you may also become whatever others need you to be, and you may confuse other people's emotion with yours. So healthy self-understanding includes saying no when you ought to say no, and saying yes without fear or guilt. And so, do you protect your energy? Do you protect your time? Do you protect your values, or do you constantly bend? Just bend, please. It's important to be aware of that. And another thing to take note of is attachment styles and early relationship, because your attachment style, for instance, is how you connect emotionally with people, and often comes from your childhood. Some are secure because maybe they trusted others and felt safe growing up in closeness. Why some may be anxious? They feel they fear they fear being abandoned, and they need constant reassurance. And others may be avoidant. They fear closeness. They value independence to the extreme. Some may be disorganized. They want to love, but they fear it. Their emotions feel chaotic. So these ties, these attachment ties, and the early relationship actually affect how you handle conflict and how you trust or withdraw. And it also affects how you express needs and you handle vulnerability. But good news is attachment styles are not static. They are not permanent, and they can change. You can heal, you can grow with self-awareness. So there are some triggers in relationship, and those triggers actually teach us. A trigger is a strong emotional reaction to something someone says or does, often based on past pain and not present reality. For example, you may overreact when someone ignores your text because um, not because of the message, but uh, because of the feeling, because of the feeling of being invincible. It makes you feel invincible because maybe as a child you felt invincible, or you may fear criticism because it reminds you of being shamed at school. You may feel jealous not because of that person, but because you feel unworthy. So trigger points are actually important because the 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 they point to parts of yourself that need healing and not blaming. So try to understand what upsets you the most in relationships and what deeper wounds might be behind it. And it's important to also be cautious of authenticity versus approval seeking. Because in many relationships, we hide our truth, we hide our feelings, our needs, our real opinions, just to be liked, to avoid conflict, to stay safe. But this creates shallow or fake closeness and fake connections. And it eventually leads to loneliness. Being authentic means being able to say what you truly feel, kindly, of course, and being willing to be misunderstood sometimes. You need to be able to choose honesty over image, and you need to trust that the right people you love the real you. You know. And do you express your truth? Do you say what you really feel, or do you hide to be accepted? See, yourself evolves in a relationship. Every relationship you have is a mirror that reflects back to you. Your strengths, your fears, your, your triggers, your road edges, your patterns. Instead of blaming others, learn to ask, what is this relationship showing me about myself? You know, and how is it helping me to grow? And uh, what do I what do I need to learn or unlearn in this relationship? And of course, we also need to take note of things like love, and trust, conflict, and forgiveness. Because healthy self-knowledge improves your love, and you can give and receive it more freely when you have a better understanding of yourself. And you can trust people better because you don't expect others to complete you. Of course, conflicts will be resolved better because you respond, you don't react, you actually respond to people positively. And you actually practice forgiveness because you let go to grow, and you don't do that to excuse harm. So you can't fully love others you don't if you don't um, love, you don't understand or love yourself, and you can't fully be loved by others if you never show them the real you. Who are you across different cultures and stages in time? Because understanding self goes beyond the individual. It also involves the world we live in. The phase of life you are in, the cultural lens you were raised through. This part will help us to realize um, that while self-identity is personal, it is also social, it's cultural, it's dynamic. For instance, you see the self is shaped by culture. Different cultural views in different ways affect the self. Individualist cultures, that's like for cultures like the USA and Canada and in Western Europe, they focus more on independence. It's a be yourself, follow your dreams. Identity is equal to personal success, uniqueness, and individual expression. Whereas in collectivist cultures like India, China, and even Africa, uh, focus on interdependence, and they think of they think more of like the family and the community. And so the identity is in contrast to the that of the individualist cultures where the identity is personal, personal success and uniqueness. In this collectivist culture, the identity is more relationship and duty and harmony. Of course, neither is wrong or right anyway, but they're all different. And this influences how we define success and how we make decisions, whether we express or hide ourselves, whether we prioritize me or we. So, do you feel free to be yourself, or are you carrying the cultural roles that you never chose? Now, cultural identity and um, sectionality, because you may have multiple cultural identities: your ethnicity, your nationality, your religion, language, your race, skin tone, gender in the society, your society, and some people live at the intersection of different cultural influences. For example, an African who grew up in Canada, or a woman from a conservative family studying in a liberal country, for instance, or even a black immigrant in Europe, you know, or a rural African student exposed uh, to the internet for the first time. So these people often ask, where do I belong? Am I too much of one thing and not enough of the other? Self-understanding in a global world means honoring your roots and choosing what fits your truth and creating a blended, evolving identity. So, what are the stages of self across the lifespan? Let's explore how your self identity changes from childhood to adulthood. Now, in early childhood, um, when we were born into around the age of 6, self is based on physical needs and immediate feelings. If you want, I'm hungry, um, I like this, uh, this, I like that, So your self is actually based on immediate feelings. Whereas in late childhood, that's just around 6, 7 years of age to around like um, teenage age, adolescence, thereabout, around 12, your identity begins to include your roles. So instead of just your immediate feelings, now you're talking about things like, I'm a student, I'm smart, I'm good at sports. And of course, the feedback you get from your parents and your teachers becomes key. Now, in teenagers, from the age of 13 to 19, you have a huge identity formation. And that's where you understand, who am I apart from my family? You know, and your friends, your clothes, your music, your school, rebellion, everything plays a role in that part of your life. First, self-esteem is fragile, but it's formative. Then, as a young adult, your 20s and your 30s, your self becomes tied to choices like your career, for instance, your relationships, your education. Your first major struggles with failure and independence and pressure actually happen around this period. And often, this early 20s, young adulthood, and your 30s, they often are the age of identity crisis and reinvention. And the middle ages, age of 40s to the 60s, self-identity moves from achievement to meaning. So questions like, is this all there is in life? Get fucked up. And what legacy will I leave? All sort of questions. There's this rise of midlife midlife crisis or transformation. And in the latter part of life, which is the older adulthood, 65 years and above, self becomes reflective and wisdom oriented. And that's where you begin to ask questions like, what has my life meant? And integration of many parts of self takes place there. You either have integrated your life, you usually have peace, or you may have regret, adverse situations, worst case scenarios. So, what stage are you in right now, and what kind of self do you want to create in this season? See, the self is a story, and you're the author. And every culture tells us stories about who we are, what roles we should play, what counts as good or bad, success or failure. But as you grow in awareness, you begin to question old stories and choose which part to keep. And you write your identity. Create a new story based on your values and not your traditions. You're not the victim of your story, by the way, you are the author. So it's important to take note of that. Now, globalization has actually affected itself. So you need to look at globalization and the fluid self. Because in a digital world, as we live in, as a computer connected world, um, a girl in India, for instance, can learn from a YouTube channel in Brazil, and a boy in Africa, may dress like a rapper from Atlanta. And so, in fact, even a woman in Saudi Arabia may study feminist theory from Sweden. So this uh, the world, the world is a global village sort of, and a lot of things we are exposed to a lot of things, and that influences ourselves because, of course, even a teenager, for instance, in maybe India may explore uh, gender identity on TikTok, and so we are exposed to more um, identities and values and choices than ever before, and this can create freedom, can make you feel like I can be whatever I want to be, but it can also create confusion and begin to ask questions like, who am I with all these options? What am I? Who am I? You you need to actually understand how the internet has, um, how internet, and travel, of what global media has shaped who you are. Because it's important because this, and it's also important to understand the universal and the personal identity because there are things about humans, about being human that unite us all. Like for instance, we all have this desire to be loved. We have the need to feel seen, and we are all on a search for the meaning, for meaning of life, meaning of this, and for meaning. And we have the fear of being rejected. Actually, we collectively have the fear of being rejected. We have, the hope of being remembered. So, but how we express those things is personal anyway, and it's shaped by our unique journey. Because you're not alone in your human struggles. The story is unlike anyone else's. But you're not alone. The self is not static. I kept on saying all throughout the video. The self is changing. And so the ever-changing self has to be understood because the reinvention and the growth eventually leads to what becomes your legacy. So you need to understand the question of who am I today and how have I become what I am today? But that is also important to understanding that who I am today is not the end of who I can become. So self is not fixed. It's not final, it's not finished. It's actually fluid, it's evolving, and it's capable of renewal many times across your life. So the final sections actually explore how um, the final sections of your life actually um, accumulates, uh, adds up with everything you've done to eventually leave sort of like your legacy. And so it's important to know that you can actually grow and reinvent your life to leave behind a meaningful legacy. Now, the self is actually always emotion. And you're not, of course, you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. Even last year, you're not the same person currently as you were last year or last week. Maybe even yesterday. Not even you are not the same person you were yesterday. You're not the same person you are yesterday. You've grown. You are a day older. So selfhood is like a river. It's always flowing, it's adapting, and it's reshaping and finding new paths. And you don't have to find yourself once. You can rediscover yourself at each stage of your life, and that's where personal growth comes in. Because it's important to understand that you are an ongoing project. Self development is not a destination, it's a daily habit, it's a mindset of curiosity, a commitment to change, and respect of your own evolution. And so, real growth is not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more deeply yourself. So, what are the ways to grow? Ways to grow. Read regularly. Read regularly. You need to read. And especially outside your comfort zone. Try to read a lot of things. Try to understand a lot of things. Try to reflect on life and keep a journal, diary, sort of about your beliefs and emotions. And you try to seek new experiences that challenge your worldview. So people are actually scared to. They're actually scared to have their perceptions criticized. So try to have experiences that challenge how you see the world, and try to surround yourself with people who stretch you sometimes, and learn from your failures, not just your successes, and practice emotional regulation and healthy habits, like I mentioned in the early part of this video, and heal from your past ones with courage and support. Now, you need to understand that there's power in your invention because many people feel stuck in their older versions of themselves. Some may say, I've always been like this. It's too late to change. It's not too late to change. It's not too late to change. And some may say people will not accept me, they don't accept the new me and all that. But that's a myth. See, you're allowed to start over and you're allowed to change paths. You're allowed to try new dreams. You're allowed to heal broken parts. You're allowed to speak differently and to dress differently. You're allowed to love differently. You're allowed to believe differently. And so every season of your life gives you permission to redefine who you are because reinvention is not betrayal. It is evolution. And so you need to heal the inner child and empower the adult self. Because within each and every adult is a younger self. The child who was hurt may be there in you. The teen who was misunderstood may also be inside you. Maybe the dreamer who was silenced is also inside you. So true self growth actually involves honoring these past versions of yourself and giving them what they didn't get, letting them inform, not control, but inform your decisions. That's where true self growth comes. As when your inner child is healed, your adult self becomes powerful. And you need to learn to live authentically and courageously. To be yourself, you actually, this world where this world of the world often pushes for conformity. And so to be yourself in this world takes clarity. You have to understand your values. You need to have the courage to face disapprovals and sort of disappointments rather. And you need to have compassion, of course, towards yourself and others, and try to be consistent, to keep choosing truth over image. See, authenticity is not just about being real, it's about being aligned with your inner truth. It's about being aligned with your uh, your outer behavior, your long-term goals. And when you're truly aligned, you feel peace. Even if it's not, even if life is not perfect, you feel peace when you're truly aligned with yourself. And so, talking about legacy, what do you want to leave behind? See, eventually, the self asks, when I am gone, what will remain? What will remain? Legacy. And legacy isn't just about fame. It's not about wealth. It's not about money, achievement. It's about how. It's about how your presence changes others. You know, did you make people feel seen? Did you contribute something bigger than yourself? Uh, did you love well? Did you pass on wisdom, knowledge, uh, strength? See, your true legacy is the people you actually influence positively. The people you uplifted, and the values you lived, and the lives you touched. What kind of ancestor do you want to be? What kind of ancestor do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to lead? And what kind of life do I want to be remembered for? I want you to take time to think about that question. And you need to understand, finally, that to continue growing your self awareness and living fully, you need to ask yourself daily and ask yourself regularly, who am I today? And who am I becoming? What stories about myself am I ready to let go of? And what does being true to myself look like now? What part of me are asking to be seen, healed, or expressed? What kind of life will make me proud on my last day? So, in conclusion, I want you to understand that knowing yourself is a revolution. Because to understand yourself is to reclaim your identity from expectations, and is to heal from the lies of the past, and it's to also break free from autopilot living. It's to embrace your gifts and your wounds, your truth, growth, and it's to begin to live with intention and clarity, as well as compassion. You're not just one thing. You are a soul, a body, a story, a moment. You're a legacy. You're always changing, and you're always becoming, and you're always enough. And I want you to always have that back of your mind. And I've said a lot of things about who you are, but who you really are cannot be figured out by others, but primarily by you. And so I haven't heard all this from me. Ask once again, who are you? Who are you? I'm Joshua Aldo. This was a discussion. Who am I? Discovering self-identity. If you like this video, feel free. Like, comment, share with your friends. Of course, subscribe to the channel. And don't stop discovering yourself, because self-actualization is not a destination. It's a journey. It's evolution. Take care.